What's up, YouTube? This is Rybo back at the bench, and today I've got another cut or carry knife review. This one's a little bit different in that, well, I guess in a couple ways. One, there are two knives here, and two, these are not pocket knives. These are kitchen knives. This is a review that I've been meaning to film for quite a while. I've had both of these for probably, I don't know, 6 months or so. Maybe even longer than that. But I bought these for my wife out of the kindness of my heart and because I wanted an excuse to buy more knives. And this was a knife purchase that she very readily agreed with because she needed some new paring knives. And one of the constant themes in my house has been that my wife's kitchen knives are always either incredibly dull or just not very high quality. And so she's been chasing good knives for years, and I need to be a little bit more proactive about finding some good ones or at least keeping hers sharp. But this was my attempt to at least start with a couple good kind of light duty but everyday kitchen knives. So these are the Z-Cut knives from Spyderco. They are very lightweight, very thin, kind of paring everyday cutting knives, and they come in a couple different configurations. So you can see I have two here. One is serrated, the other is not. These are the yellow handle. I think they also come in green and red maybe. There's also another blade configuration that you can do. So you'll notice on both of these that these have blunted tips. And they look kind of funky, but you can also get a pointed tip. And I think, if I remember correctly, even the pointed tip is maybe not super pointed. It's kind of a weird Spyderco type point. But I wanted to try the blunted tip. As weird as I thought it looked, I thought that it might be a good thing, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But that is what these are. So these are the Z-Cut blunted tip. And you have the straight edge and then the serrated edge down here. These are both in CTS BD1N, so same steel that I believe the Para 3 lightweight stock comes in, and I think is a somewhat common kitchen steel. So that's the steel for both of these. And let me go ahead and do a size comparison. Size comparison is going to be a little bit weird for this just because it's not a pocket knife. And so I don't know how helpful this is going to be. I grabbed one of her other paring knives. You can see not a high quality knife by any means. This is probably like a TJ Maxx find. But this was her favorite paring knife before. And so you can see it's a little bit larger. I want to go ahead and bring something that's maybe a little bit more relatable. So the PM2. So you can see not small knives. I mean, obviously fixed blade kitchen knives are kind of a totally different scale than a folding knife, but you can see it's a good size knife. And even if you're looking at the sharpened blade length, it's quite a bit of blade length there, which is great. And then I'll just throw up the knife that is in my pocket, and the knife that's almost always in my, not almost always, it is often in my pocket, but my trusty CRK small Sabenza 31 that I've now had, I think, for 2 years, just over 2 years, and is a trusty companion. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this review, and let me go ahead and talk about things that I like about the Spyderco Z-Cut. So pretty much everything. I mean, I'm gonna kind of ruin the suspense of the review, but these are incredible little knives. These very quickly became my wife's favorite knives in the kitchen, and mine as well. And still to this day, you know, what I say, 6 months to a year later, they're the same. She loves these knives. I actually, to do this review, had to pull both of them out of the dry. You know, we have like a drying rack beside the sink, and they were both drying there because they are used all the time. So they were both dirty. These are used daily, multiple times a day, and they're awesome. So why are they awesome? So first of all, This is, and these Z cuts are offset kitchen knives. So if you think of an offset knife as one in which the handle is not in line with the blade, this is probably obvious to most of you knife guys, but just in case it's not, or someone who's watching, think about this as kind of your your classic kitchen knife or chef's knife or whatever, where you have, and I should have just grabbed one of my wife's, but you have kind of the blade and then it comes up and then you have the handle. I mean, very similar to this, although maybe assume all this is blade right here. The benefit of that being that when you hold it, you have maybe a more natural cutting angle for larger things, and your knuckles aren't in the way of the blade hitting there. Making it, in fact, this is probably a decent example of another slightly offset kitchen knife, but different than something like a pocket knife, where it's pretty much all in the same line. And it's really not intended to do the same things, but this is an offset knife. And so the first thing I like about it is that it is an offset knife. And you have all the benefits of easier cutting angles and just a more comfortable grip, just a more natural, if I'm standing up, cutting down on the kitchen counter, just a more natural angle for my hand. So there's a lot of good that comes from that. You typically don't see them in small paring knives like this quite as drastic as this. And you do notice that you don't have all the blade steel back here. I think that's intentional, probably for a few reasons. Cost cutting is surely one, but also it makes the knife much lighter weight because you have less steel here. But it also makes it, I think, and I can't prove this for sure other than to compare it to some of the other paring knives that we've had, but I think it makes it a lot slicier because you just have a very, very thin blade stock, which means it's not going to be perfect for everything. But you have a very, very thin blade stock. You don't have much of it, and it doesn't really have that much to get through, in terms of blade material here. And so I think it just slices very, very easily. And so I love the fact that it is an offset little paring knife. I think that's really awesome. And kind of hand in hand with that, and hand in hand maybe being a little bit of a play on words, it is incredibly ergonomic. And so you would expect nothing less from Spyderco, and there's really nothing super fancy here, but you have a very clear grip here. I have somewhat large hands, not super large, but I can get all 4 fingers on there really, really comfortably. The top here is maybe a little bit awkward, but otherwise incredibly comfortable. You have a nice little, kind of almost choil there, I guess. And it is just I think a very comfortable grip. You can see there's a little bit of contouring on the handle there. So you do have that hollow right there, which is even, more material that is off of the knife. And so even a lighter knife. But when you're gripping the knife, you can, feel that your fingers go in there, and it's just an overall very comfortable knife to hold, and very lightweight. So that's another thing that I really like. So these knives are kind of, they're marketed as these very lightweight kitchen knives, and they are that. I of course don't have a scale with me, but they are incredibly lightweight. I mean, this is just some kind of a plastic here, and then like I said, you have this incredibly thin blade stock there, and so you just don't have much material here, but what you do have is, I think, fairly well balanced and very ergonomic. So the ergos, the fact that it's offset, all of that, really, really good. Next up, the steel, I'm actually a fan of. I was a little bit nervous when I saw that these were CTS BD1N, just because I didn't have the greatest experience with that as a carry steel. I don't remember all of the different reasons, but I seem to remember that it went dull faster than I had expected, and that overall I just wasn't super impressed. However, it has performed really, really well. I actually find myself sharpening these a lot less frequently than the other kitchen knives, which is probably because they're just super cheap, kind of outlet store knives that are probably some kind of cheap stainless option. I don't really know what the other steels are, and because they're not marked, that probably gives me a pretty good indication. So this is a step up in terms of the steel, and I don't really have any complaints. It has been stainless in terms of rust. You can obviously see that these are well-loved knives and have plenty of wear on the blade, but they haven't presented any rust issues, and I have not had to sharpen them very often. So that has been a big plus. And honestly, in our kitchen, look, we have 3 young kids. We are cutting lunches and apples and grapes and all that good stuff all day long. And so a sharp knife is the one that is going to get used, even if it's not the most preferable knife. But thankfully these stay sharp, long, not long more. These stay sharp a lot longer than the other knives in the drawer. So there's that. So the steel, the ergos, the overall kind of offsetness of the knife. I talked about the lightness. I mean, these are just incredibly lightweight. And I think I mentioned this, but the sliciness. I mean, these are just very, very slicey knives. Haven't really had any issue cutting what we've needed to cut. Obviously, we don't use these for, it's not like we're using these for steaks or anything like that, but for pretty much anything we need them to do, they're doing just fine. The other thing, and probably the final thing that I'll mention that I really, really like about these knives, and that I was kind of surprised to like as much as I do, is the blunt tip. So this was something I had not had a blunt tip knife before. And I didn't really know what to expect. There's maybe, I don't know, it's kind of like placebo effect. Like you have a blunt tip knife, so it feels safer or whatever, even though it's maybe not really, maybe it is really, I don't know. But my wife really, really likes it. And so that's cause enough for me to like it. She really, really likes the blunt tip. And I think that in practice, it does feel a little bit different using this. Obviously, you're a little bit more limited in what you can do. Like one thing that I found myself that this falls a little bit short, and not really falls short because it's not intended to, but like if I'm cutting open a package of cheese or something like that, like I can't really use the tip of the knife to do that. There is a little tip right there, but not well sharpened and not really what that's intended for. So that's one small thing. But besides that, I've really actually enjoyed the blunt tip, and it could just be, I don't really know what it could be, but I've enjoyed it, and I can't really give a reason why, other than it just feels like we're maybe free to move it around a little bit more without fear of anything. Plus, I'm teaching my son safe knife usage and that kind of thing, and so these are 2 knives that we've started off on, supervised cuts and things like that as he learns some knife safety. So I like that. I also just think the look of the pointed version of the Z cut is kind of goofy. I do not like the aesthetics of the Z cut points. So I'll definitely be sticking with the blunt tip. All right. That's it for things that I like. Things that I dislike, there's really not much here. Maybe the only thing I could say is it's a tad too thin, but I don't think I'd want to go any thicker just because it just starts to not slice as well and not cut as well. And these have been a joy. But they do flex quite a bit. So if you don't like that, you may not like these. If you compare that to something like this, this isn't really going to flex. And to be honest, it's not that much of a difference. I don't have calipers with me, but they're both fairly thin. But I would say the Z cuts are much slicier. And there's a lot that could contribute to that, not just the blade stock, but overall, I really do like this, but that's one thing to maybe keep in mind is that they're going to flex a little bit. And then, the only other thing that I can really think of, and it's just aesthetics, and I get why they did it, but like the hole in the Spyderco kitchen knives to me is always super goofy. I mean, yes, it's like the brand and everything, but I don't know, just looks kind of weird to me. Everything else though is awesome. Love these knives. These are Definitely carries. These are in the kitchen. I'm probably gonna pick up a couple more of them. I think they make great gifts actually, because they're kind of funky and different and like, you know, whatever. But I really like them. My wife really likes them. It really doesn't matter what I think. She does most of the cooking and stuff, and she gives these a big thumbs up. So definitely check these out. I don't think I mentioned the price because I usually don't, but I think these are under 20 bucks. Although I say that, I bought them, like I said, 6 months to a year ago. Inflation pretty high right now, so who knows what these cost. But these are not expensive knives, and I think that they are well worth whatever I paid for it back then, and I don't exactly remember what that was. But would definitely suggest you pick them up, and this will probably lead to another Spyderco kitchen knife purchase for me in the future, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.